How's it going, everybody? My name's Dave Whipple and you're watching Bushradical. In today's video, we're going to talk about saws. Outdoor saws. The saws that you would take camping. There's a subscriber on this channel called Regal Bowman who comments a lot. Regal Bowman asked me a question if I would shoot a video about outdoor type saws. So Regal Bowman, this video is for you. Now I've got a pile of saws. I've got vintage hand saws stacked up on the wall. I've got saws from the 1800s. I've got distance saws. I've got Atkins saws. I've got Simon saws. I've got rip saws. I've got crosscut saws. I've got saws for logging. I've got keyhole saws. I've got hack saws. I've got saw vices, saw sets, saw files. I've got chop saws, chainsaws, skill saws, table saws, band saws, chainsaw mills, more chainsaw mills. I've got saws. I just like saws. If I'm going to the outdoors, whether it's a camping trip or a boating trip or a canoe trip, I generally only take one saw. Not only just one kind of saw, but generally I just grab the same saw over and over and over. It's this guy. This is a 24-inch bow saw. I'm not sure what company made this specific model. I bought it at a yard sale for about $5. This is the second blade I've put on it, but I still have the original blade and it's fine. I really don't think there's any way that you can do better than just a standard bow saw. But of all the bow saws I've had and given away and bought and sold and picked up for $1 at yard sales, I would say if I was going to recommend a saw to somebody, I would say a 24-inch bow saw that doesn't taper down. Some bow saws are like a triangle shape. The frame on this particular saw doesn't have hardly any taper to it. You're going to be able to cut a good thickness of wood with this. The frame on this saw is super rigid, very rigid. That's the only thing I can say with a bow saw that you really want to watch out for. Try to find one that has the most rigid frame that you can find. Something that doesn't have a flimsy feel. There are some Chinese import bow saws that are, they're just made a little lighter. They could probably still do the job, but you might have flex in the blade that would cause the blade to bind, where with a more rigid saw like this, you're not going to have that problem. You could always go with a larger bow saw like this. I think this is like a 32-inch. It's got a good solid rigid frame. It costs about $3 at a yard sale. But I would have to say a model like this that's, 24, 26 inches, it's a little more packable. Back in the old days, folks used to use bow saws like this fella. Big old 42-incher. Now, I'm aware that there's a lot of folks out there that like a folding saw. And there's a lot of benefits for a folding saw in that it packs down into a straight line and you can slip it into a bag. Whether it's a little lightweight job like this or one of the large professional folding saws, ends up being a very packable size once you fold it down. The weakness to that is you have a joint here in the middle and you don't have anything to keep this blade rigid. That's not really a huge issue because these saws are meant to cut on the pull stroke. You're not supposed to push them back and forth, so it doesn't really need a frame to keep this blade rigid. Now, although I have a couple of these things floating around here, I never take them with me. The bow saw does everything I want it to do. The bow saw, even though it doesn't fold down into a packable cylindrical shape, it doesn't weigh anything. I don't think this saw weighs a pound, if it weighs a pound. Probably 10 ounces. And it's very strong. It's very simple. It's also refined to the point where you probably couldn't make it any better. It's about as good as this design could ever get. So what about folding bow saws? Yeah, they're probably pretty decent. As long as the frame is rigid and the blade isn't flexing all the time. Now with an option like this, you have a saw that you can put together and assemble out in the field, and it's going to pack up into a tube, stuff right down in your backpack, no problem. The only issue is you've got a hinge here, you've got a hinge here, you've got a frame that might not be as rigid as it could be if it was just a solid saw. I'm definitely not disparaging these saws. I'm just saying they're not my favorite, but that's just because I'm kind of biased one way. I've kind of already got something that really works well for me. But if you find one of these takedown bow saws that's nice and rigid and you feel comfortable with it, I'm sure it's every bit as good as a standard one-piece bow saw. I bought this particular saw for $5 at a yard sale. And Brooke and I took this specific saw out to Vancouver Island on season 4 of Alone. We probably cut close to a cord of firewood with this saw. Never had any problems. Very ergonomic. It was the perfect length because you didn't really want to make a longer stroke. So a 2-foot stroke was just about right. The frame never had a hiccup. The blade never had a hiccup. It's bulletproof. It's super simple. The only downside is it doesn't pack down as small as some other saws. But it kind of makes up for that fact that it doesn't weigh anything. And although when I look around I notice that I've got 10,000 saws, when it comes to outdoor saws, I'm really just a one saw guy. I don't look any farther than a saw just like this because it does everything I want it to. Thank you guys so much for watching Bush Radical. If you like this video, make sure you hit the like button and the sub button and the little bell that lets you know when I post videos, which I try to do quite often. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. Be radical, eh? See you soon.